This is a Vidalia onion. It is fresh out of the ground. I pulled it out of the dirt myself less than an hour ago. This is a Peruvian sweet onion. It came here on a ship to the port of Savannah, which is about an hour that away. There it came to Vidalia, Georgia, where it's put in bags and boxes just like this. You might notice some similarities. They're first cousins. This onion would not exist without this onion. And this onion almost didn't exist at all. Come on, let me take you where the food comes from. The Vidalia onion was a happy accident that happened in the 1930s. A farmer ran out of his normal seedlings that he had around here to put in the ground. He ordered a truckload from Texas. When he planted it in the sandy soils of Vidalia, Georgia, it came up sweet. At first, the farmer who had the sweet onion crop thought he was ruined. Turns out he had created an industry. When we're talking about the Vidalia onion, we're talking about a product that didn't even exist 100 years ago.
It came on the scene because of the taste, you know? It had that sweet taste to it, you know, as compared to what they'd been used to. So that's good for a product to come on hinging on the taste. And the Vidalia did. The Vidalia just has got a better taste.
Now what's interesting to me is this onion was an accident. It was in the 1930s. People were not looking for a sweet onion because they had never heard of such a thing. They were looking for that savory, spicy, hot onion.
Right. That's right.
And the amazing thing about the Vidalia, if somebody still has somehow never tried one, number one, get out and get them. They're,
right.
they're fantastic.
When they'll see, you'll see that a Vidalia, first of all, it's got a sweet taste to it, you know. It's got just a tad of a kick,
but it's
that kick
still
will
got
go away.
That savory.
It's there.
It's an onion,
and
it tastes like an onion.
And there is a texture on a Vidalia onion that you won't find on another onion. You cut it, you can hear it. You can hear it when you cut. When you cut with a sharp knife, you can hear that going through that texture. Try it sometime.
I try it all the time, Bob. Why couldn't we get it for 50 years? Why did you have to tell people, hey, if you're coming through Vidalia, Georgia, pick up some of those onions and bring them to me? Why couldn't you go to the supermarket? This industry wasn't slow or behind.
It'll surprise you to find out how many people just want to farm, you know. And I've heard them tell me, say, Bob, we just want to farm. We want to farm, make a beautiful crop, you know, good yields, and we don't want to get involved in the selling it. And then you got some folks that don't want to really actually do the hands-on farming, they want to sell them.
Sure.
So you mix them together, you put them together, you know.
Vidalia onions, wonderful as they are, have a very limited growing season. They'll only grow in about a 50, 75 mile radius of Vidalia, Georgia, because the soil and the climate are not right anywhere else. They start in April, that's when that harvest begins. There's enough crop to get through August, sometimes into September a little bit. Up until a couple of weeks ago, this was not such a scraggly looking plant. These tops were lush and green and full. This is part of how you know when it's time to harvest an onion, when it falls over and lays like that. That same thing happened with this onion in Peru. So why do we have a Peruvian onion?
It hit the national stage in the 1980s. The industry just took off like a rocket in the late 80s, all through the 90s. Every industry goes through that cycle. And so somewhere in that mid to late 90s, we hit maturation and saturation, and there was an equilibrium of supply and demand that was, we oversupplied the demand for a little while. We got back into balance, as most industries do. But you know, retailers in the late 80s and the early 90s started looking around and saying, hey, we've got something that's very different here in the Vidalia onion, and it's different than a yellow cooking onion. And we need to merchandise it differently, we need to sell it differently, and we want this onion year round. And so they turned to us in Georgia and said, hey, I know the Vidalia season's over, what can we do?
Hi, I'm Chef Holly Shute with the Georgia Department of Agriculture representing Georgia Grown. So we're going to be making a roasted Vidalia onion salad dressing. So we've got some Dijon mustard, which we're going to put in a little food processor. Then we've got some pre-roasted Vidalia onions. They're chopped, tossed with a little bit of olive oil, salt and pepper, and roasted in the oven. And to that, we're going to add a little bit of sherry vinegar. Then we're going to pulse that. We're going to season that with a little bit of salt and pepper, and then some olive oil. And that's all there is to it. And you can use that on your favorite types of salad greens. So remember to take advantage of sweet Vidalia onions when they're in season.
Vidalia Onions, hand-planted, hand-picked by chefs.
It wasn't until the 1980s that other people around the country and world started discovering the Vidalia onion. They had kind of kept it to themselves until then. They said, maybe we should share this. They did. It was a great idea. Instant hit. The grocery stores know a good thing when they see it. So they came to the Vidalia growers and said, we got to have these onions 12 months out of the year. Vidalia said, it can't be done. Mother Nature won't allow it. Retail said, find a way. Vidalia did. They looked around the world for a perfect off-season climate. They found it in Peru.
We went all over South America, in Brazil, Ecuador, Chile, Peru. I mean, we're just trying to duplicate what we have began to perfect in Southeast Georgia and trying to deliver that same value proposition to the consumer.
How pivotal has this onion been in the success of Schumann Farms?
It has transformed our company. I mean, our season of going to market was 4 to 5 months, and we were done. And here comes Peru, ideal climate. We grow them on the west coast of Peru, on the Pacific Ocean. It's a sandy desert type climate. They get very little rainfall. You know, it's an ideal climate for this type of variety of onion. Peru's a trade-friendly country with the U.S. A lot of great people down there, and this has been a tremendous success for the U.S. sweet onion market. This Peruvian onion has allowed us to expand our operations and keep our employees and to keep our facilities running on a 12-month basis, and it has just changed everything for us. You know, here's a little old Georgia company in Southeast Georgia in the Vidalia sweet onion business, and now we are fully, over 25 years later, we're fully integrated in Peru.
And it sounds like Peru was the Goldilocks in the equation. Not too hot, not too cold, just right.
Ideal. Remember now, the Vidalia onion and the Peruvian onion are growing in off seasons. So the Peruvian onion does not compete with the Vidalia onion.
When it's summer here, it's winter in Peru.
That is correct.
When it's summer in Peru, it's winter here.
That's right. So when we're harvesting in Vidalia, we're planting in Peru. And when we're beginning to harvest in Peru and start to pack and ship and distribute Peruvian onions, we're done with our Vidalia onion season. When I hear buy domestic, I hear support American jobs. So I encourage you to go out and support and buy Peruvian sweet onions, because you will be supporting American jobs, not only at Schumann Farms, but everyone in the Vidalia sweet onion industry who's involved and vertically integrated back in Peru, and also the Port of Savannah that touches over 500,000 jobs in Georgia and in the southeastern United States. I cannot tell you how important an economic driver the Peruvian sweet onion industry is to southeast Georgia.
And how it would not exist without the beautiful Vidalia onion.
If nobody would ever have heard of a Peruvian sweet onion without a Vidalia onion.
You see this flat shape? That's what tells the tale. They're virtually identical. They look a lot alike. The real proof is a Vidalia onion tastes like this. And a Peruvian onion tastes like this.
Hasn't.
Just as I grew up watching my dad in the farm supply business and being a farmer and just being in all things agriculture, just 24/7, 365, immersed in it. And you grew up and you see that and it makes an impact on you. That was a big part of what encouraged me to come back home from college and stay in agriculture and just growing up in it. So our boys are growing up, they're in college, they've been in and around produce, Vidalia onions, all their life. And I'm very optimistic and hopeful that it's made an impression on them. And as a second generation Vidalia onion grower, packer, shipper, I'm hopeful that my two boys come back into the family business and become third generation.
Sweet potato cookies, sweet potato pound bread.
How many ways can you use a North Carolina sweet potato? North Carolina sweet potatoes are not just so good, they're so good for you. We've known that for a long time. That's why North Carolina farms 2 out of every 3 sweet potatoes grown in America.
Mashed sweet potatoes.
North Carolina sweet potatoes. And don't forget, it's just one word. You can look it up.
Sweet potato pie.
Relationships were made with Port of Savannah, which is one of the busiest ports in the nation. It's about an hour and a piece east of here.
You know, Peruvian sweet onions probably put 7,000 to 8,000 truckloads of sweet onions on the U.S. market. That's a lot of sweet onions. And that's probably, if you look at a 12-month calendar, even Vidalia, the Peruvian sweet onion puts as much, if not more, sweet onions on the market during its window, during the fall and winter months, than any other sweet onion in America. So it's very widely known, it's very popular, and it's a tremendous mild, sweet product, and so it's been well received. So all those goods have to come through the port, right?
Somewhere, you're not going to put them on a truck and drive them up from Peru.
If you look at the volume and the percentage of that volume coming into U.S. ports, about 70 to 75% of those containers are coming through southeastern ports, and the overwhelming majority of those are coming through the Port of Savannah. Number 2, why are all these premium sweet onions coming into the southeastern U.S.? Because this is where the Vidalia sweet onion industry is.
The infrastructure is set up here to handle it.
This is where the infrastructure in America is to handle premium sweet onions, and this is where the growers and the packers and the shippers and the channels of distribution are located. So it's no wonder that the leaders in the Vidalia industry are also the leaders in the Peruvian industry.
So Aries, we're sitting here just a couple of weeks out from the start of Vidalia onion season. That's really the first fresh onion crop that the United States gets every year. But this is not the first time you've been dealing with onions in this calendar year.
No.
There's never a time you're not dealing with onions.
That's correct.
So you came along, again, you're from Vidalia. You went to Vidalia High School. So the Vidalia onion you knew about. The Peruvian onion, that onion probably didn't come to these shores. What were you, maybe in kindergarten when onion first came to America?
Yeah. I don't even remember when they first come through.
And you wouldn't. I mean, it wasn't, for a long time, it wasn't even promoted as a different onion. It was just a sweet onion.
Just a sweet onion, yeah.
Sweet onion. When did M&T, now A&M, first get into the Peruvian side of things?
It was probably, I'd say it was probably 7 years ago, 8 years ago.
So a relative latecomer.
Mm-hmm.
So everybody
Absolutely.
else is in the early to mid 90s when the pioneers were first saying, can we do this? Then the late 90s when they started, the early 2000s when they said, all right, yeah, this will work. So y'all had the common sense to wait and let everybody work out the problems. And
I don't know if
then
it was. I don't know if it was common sense or if it was just our turn. It was just when it was our turn in line.
Yeah,
You know.
yeah.
So, you know, we started just bringing in a few onions through J&D Produce out of Texas. They would bring them in, and we just basically would help manage that for them and help pack them. And
How much has it grown since that early jump in?
whew, it's grown. Let's just say we've been blessed. You know, I think when they first brought their first few containers over, we probably had 20 containers, and then from there it's just expanded. I don't even know now kind of how many we are in. I'm able to hire and keep my core group of folks at the shed year round. It gives them something to do, something to stay into. They're able to stay in the groove the whole time, I guess you could say. And you know, you look at the infrastructure that it's done, what it's done with Savannah as far as the port and the jobs it produces at the port in Savannah, and then the truck drivers that's needed just to bring it to us, and then the truck drivers that's needed just to haul onions from here to the store. You know, so I mean, it's for us, we went from a company that we had about roughly seven full-time employees. Now we're up to around 35 full-time employees.
Wow.
Where does the food come from? Lane Southern Orchards. Peaches, pecans, homemade baked goods, jams, wine, and candies, plus some of the finest Southern fare you'll find anywhere in our Peachtree Cafe, just off exit 142 on I-75 in Fort Valley, Georgia.
When you purchase Georgia-grown products, you support farmers, families, and this proud state we call home. Together, we will keep Georgia growing.
At Red Sun Farms, we understand how important it is to know where your food comes from. Our master growers select the very best non-GMO seeds to propagate and harvest in our high-tech greenhouses. Our farms are home to different varieties of tomatoes, peppers, and cucumbers in both conventional and organic formats. Whether you're enjoying produce from our farms in Mexico, the USA, or Canada, your family will be enjoying the highest quality and most flavorful produce year-round. When you buy from Red Sun Farms, you will experience our seed-to-plate difference.
From North Carolina's mountains to the sea, when it comes to selecting and serving the best local foods and produce for you and your family, it's got to be NC.
This is, I guess, the staging area, the arrival area for the Vidalia onion crop.
For our Vidalia onion crop, which is grown within a so many mile radius of our facility, so we bring them in on trucks.
Once that onion is out of the field, your job is still only about half done. Now the same process happens with the Peruvian onion, but in reverse because of the reverse season. When it's summer here, it's winter there. When it's winter there, it's summer here.
Yeah.
So do those onions, the Peruvian onions, also come in through here?
They come in through our shipping cooler. We unload the containers through
Other
our
end of the
shipping
building.
cooler. They're under end of the building.
Everything goes under cold protection. You can't just randomly, you're not gonna sit these onions out on a dock. They're not gonna pick them up in a parking lot somewhere.
I mean, once we load the container in Peru, it's on a humidity controlled and a temperature controlled container. It arrives at the port of Savannah, we truck it over here, and then we bring them into our facility right here through this room. And once they leave Peru, they are under the cold chain.
But in that cold chain, sweet onions have a little bit of a wrinkle.
They perspire. So when we take them off these containers in the shipping cooler, we do that so that they don't sweat. So in South Georgia, we're unloading containers in August and September and October and all the way into February and March. And sometimes in the fall, it's hot here.
A little bit of humidity too.
A little bit of humidity. So if you pop the doors on a cold container into this 90-degree temperature, they're gonna automatically start sweating, right? So we don't want that.
Then you take a next necessary step of heating and drying those onions.
We do.
Then I bet you put them right back under cold.
We do.
In the food safety world, that doesn't mean the cold chain was broken.
No.
Because they were under cold through the whole process, and they go back in the cooler, back on a refrigerated truck, and then they're off the market.
That's it.
How big are these rooms? What's in it?
You know,
I think we're about to find out.
Yeah, we've got 10 of these drying rooms. We can hold about 483 bins.
Right. 483 bins.
Per drying room.
John, that's like 500,000 pounds of onion.
Yeah,
in this one room.
In one room, yeah.
That's 5 million pounds of onions that could be in these rooms at any one time.
During peak season Vidalia, these rooms stay full every day. So the airflow comes across the bins, and as they pull them, it's forcing that air through the bins. So we're actually pulling this air through the onions. It promotes shelf life.
All right. What's next on the tour?
We have our graders. This is the grading table. So we'll grade the onions for quality or mechanical defects or something along those lines, and they'll get
Is that
graded
optical, or is that people doing it?
That's people.
That's people who are trained to know this looks good, this looks bad, this is the wrong size, it's the wrong shape, it's got a blemish on it.
Got a blemish, not size so much. We're going to do the size
That's a next step.
Later down the line.
Okay.
The electronic sorter. So it's going to take pictures of the onions that go under a camera system. Each onion is in a cup, and that cup is assigned a number back into a computer system. And so those cameras taking pictures of those onions and measuring it by diameter and by weight. And so it'll drop them in certain lanes into certain bin boxes.
So from the cameras and the computer, this machine already knows by the time the onion gets on the other side what line it's going down and what bin it's going into.
We're sorting them by diameter.
I feel like I'm on a spaceship.
Yeah.
Every bit of this is incredibly modern, up-to-date, space-age technology. And in that booth right there is a control system, a command module, and they're operating all of this. So we've seen how far they've come down this line. What happens from here? What's the last leg of this journey?
So the onions go into this system, and they're sorted by size and diameter, and each one of these highways, they drop based on their diameter. And we've already preloaded into each one of these lanes the specific size that we want to drop.
So when we see all these lanes here like a freeway, they're going by size.
They are.
And so you can have any of those sizes. I guess, can you adjust that size on each line? Or
you can, yeah.
So if you've got a crop that's heavy on jumbos or heavy on mediums, you can adjust the machine to compensate for that.
Typically, we're harvesting out of the field in April and May, and we're packing and shipping to market out of the field, so to speak, is what we call it, fresh season.
You got that's about a 6-week harvest usually?
About 6 weeks maybe. If the weather cooperates, maybe 7, but typically 5, 6, 7 weeks. And we'll be packing out of the field for market, and we'll also be packing out of field into bin boxes, going into cold storage and filling our cold storage rooms. Somewhere around the 20th of May, around Memorial Day, we'll pop the cold storage rooms. We'll be done in the field, and we'll continue. We'll never miss a day. We'll just start packing right out of cold storage, shipping those to market, and that'll go all summer, typically into August and into Labor Day.
And that technology is so efficient that you really can't, there might be those who say you can, you really can't tell the difference between a Vidalia onion we pull out of the field and eat today and a Vidalia onion you'll take out of that storage in August.
No, you can't. It's the same thing.
Every onion that comes through this facility, whether it's a Vidalia that was grown in these fields all around us and all over this region, or if it is like these onions, has made a long voyage from Peru, this is where it's finally done.
We pre-cool the onions down to a certain temperature before we load them on the truck and send them to market.
You might think an onion is an onion wherever it comes from. It's not. These onions are the most special onions in the world. That's my Vidalias. They've got another very special friend coming in from Peru every year. It's amazing how it works. 5 months of these, 7 months of those, it makes one perfectly big, sweet circle out here where the food comes from.
We are a member-driven nonprofit association of leaders from all facets of the produce industry.
Formed more than 20 years ago, we continue to promote the value of fresh fruits and vegetables in the Southeast through networking, innovation, community, and education.
Today, we are a thriving organization who continues to share and pursue our vision, mission, values, and goals.
We are the Southeast Produce Council.
For you, this isn't just a job, it's a way of life. At Farm Credit, your goal is our goal. We specialize in financing for land, farms, and homes for you. Committed to ag, committed to you.